morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm so happy you're here with us right now. You are about to meet the most incredible man, 5 times award-winning coach, author, consultant, corporate trainer, international speaker, TEDx speaker, radio presenter, healer. My God, the list goes on. As I said, oh, and my dog's joining in. The moment I actually start recording, the dog joins in. Isn't that lovely? So without further ado, I am so pleased to introduce Doug Gordon, all the way from Ireland. Thank you, Doug.
Hey, Lisa, lovely to be on. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, it's brilliant. So we are all about living your dream life through your dream business. And I have you here today because if anybody epitomizes what it is to do that, you do. So for our listeners, what is it that got you to where you are today? Now that's a loaded question because you've been in banking, you've had a very conventional business, and now you speak and you heal and you coach and you lead and you inspire. So let me start with a little bit of your story. So can you tell me, you know, where you were brought up in Ireland? Did you go to business school? How did you get into banking? And give us a little bit of the background, if you would.
Of course, yeah. So lovely to be on your show, and also anybody who's listening, thank you for your time. And yeah, so I started off, I lived in Dublin in Ireland till I was 8, and then moved across to London till I was 14, 15, and then across to Belgium, to Brussels until I was 19. And then I went to Loughborough University, mainly because of sport, actually, because I played Premier League, National League hockey over in Belgium for one of the top clubs over there. And I basically got an offer to get into Loughborough University, which is the top university for sport in Europe. And went there for 4 years, where generally I played sport and hockey, did a little bit of engineering on the side, and managed to scrape through a degree and a master's. And then I thought I was going to go into engineering, but then after getting soot in my nose, my ears, and all over my suit for a few months, I decided maybe finance might be a better option. And I moved into the financial world initially as a customer service exec with Fidelity, then worked up to sales support with Lazard, then sales with Lazard, then HSBC sales management, same at Aviva Investors, and then got poached to be a sales director at Threadneedle Investments, which became Columbia Threadneedle. They were about 550 billion. Was there for about 10 years. And then my father-in-law, I'm no longer married now, but I was married to a lovely lady, and we had 2 children. But the father had cancer and kidney failure, so he was 80, and I figured, you know what, if I could do anything for someone, taking the family back to be there for him in his last years would be a nice thing to do. And obviously, if I was that age, I'd love that to have my daughter or son there as well. So we moved back to Ireland, and I'd sold a lot of business over in Ireland. I actually grown the asset management business in the UK from 50 million per annum sales to 1.75 billion. It was in the newspapers for that, both Times and the Independent. So I'd actually sold about, I think, almost £1 billion worth of funds to Irish domiciled fund management groups in Dublin. So I was offered 2 jobs and chose Davy, where I finished up my kind of corporate career as such, and was there for a couple of years, but then got started being paid to speak. But if we roll back during that time period as well, back in 2012, I came back to Ireland, by the way, in 2015. Back in 2012, or in fact, we go back to 2008, obviously the stock markets went through the floor. And in that time period, while they went through the floor, we lost in our particular business a lot of money, like billions. I'm talking absolute billions. And we had to lay off a lot of people. And I didn't realize at the time, I'm quite empathetic towards other people's energy. And obviously there's a lot of stress, a lot of fear and everything like that. And I felt it. And after seeing doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, and then had 2 operations that went wrong, I ended up having 3 years of chronic pain of stress-related stuff, but it was very, very painful, where I was sometimes waking up 10 times in the night. And that was a horrific time for me, and marriage kind of broke down a bit there. And then by 2012, I didn't think anything could get any worse. And it was actually one of my best years in the industry in terms of funds coming in. But in terms of my own health, I ended up getting norovirus. And after 10 days of serious dehydration, where my electrolytes were down to zero, I was rushed to hospital and rushed down to A&E and then rushed down to X-ray. And on the way down to X-ray, I actually died. And I was encapsulating this amazing feeling of love, energy, and connection. Nothing like I'd ever felt before. There's no man with a beard, but there was definitely a living, conscious, loving energy that was surrounding me and a knowing, telling me that it's time to do something different. So I came back with a passion to help people, and that's where it basically led. Initially, I actually wanted to cure myself and heal myself. So I got into healing really to heal myself first, but then discovered I had a gift to heal others as well. So I became a master teacher of 5 modalities of healing. But then because I have the business career and the background, the leadership and the management and all that kind of stuff, I got onto stages talking about sales, leadership, management, everything. And then gradually as well incorporated some of the wellness stuff as well to give a more conscious leadership approach and more conscious communication approach to try and help people think better, speak better, and even act better as well. So yeah, and then I had a radio show which went from 0 to over, well, at one stage over 200,000 live listeners at some of the shows. And since then now I've been offered a podcast with Together magazine, who are sponsoring it. So that's just happening just recently. But I've interviewed some amazing people, and those people have been, New York Times Bestsellers, film stars, international sports stars, and many CEOs and even politicians around the world, where I've learned from them, befriended them, been on stage with them, worked with them, and through that have utilized what I've learned then to write my book, which is just coming out actually on the 22nd of February. And it's called Charge Yourself Up for Success, Energizing Your Life, Work, and Relationships. And that's basically accumulation of all the knowledge that I've had in my entire life, whether being a top class hockey player, performing well in the industry in terms of finance, but also tips and tricks in terms of how to build and grow a coaching company, but also get yourself into the best energetic state so you perform at the highest level, both in your relationships and in life.
I'm tired listening to it. My God, you've accomplished more than most people have in, 10 lifetimes. You are obviously driven. So let's go. So when I listen to you and I help clients who say, I want to be a coach, or I want to have a small business. Normally they don't know where to start. And sometimes they've tried and they found it very difficult. They don't know who to ask, or they feel they haven't got the energy, or they feel like it's too difficult and they're too stressed, because in most entrepreneurs or anyone starting a business, they feel like it's overwhelming and there's too much to learn, and where's the money going to come from? This doesn't seem to be the sort of thing you've ever suffered from, or has there been an aspect? And so I'm just curious, that there does seem to be a different mindset involved, and you seem to be the epitome of someone who's always had some kind of positive mental attitude. So look back when you were younger. Do you think you were different then?
Well, do you know what, Lisa? I remember I had 2 very different parents, but they complemented each other very well. So I had a father where if I got 80, sorry, let's say if I got 70% in an exam, he'd ask me why didn't I get 80. If I got 80, he'd ask why I didn't get 90. If I got 90, he'd ask why I didn't get 100. So he was always pushing me to that extra edge. And then I had a mother who, I have to say, bless her, every single night before we went to sleep as children, she would rub our foreheads and say, Doug is a good, kind, honest and truthful, caring and loving person who's always going to find his true passion and do well. And wow. She literally seeded my subconscious with that every single night. So I've always been a very kind person. I've always been very loving. I've always been interested in helping others, sometimes to my own fault in terms of people pleasing. But I'm also passionate about people. I love people. I love creating friendships, relationships, everything like that. So in terms of sales, which I was in for a long, long time, obviously I did very well. And that was down to the relationships I built, and always having an emphasis of trying to bring in long-term relationships rather than just trying to get a quick win or a quick sale. So a lot of my clients from the financial world, including CIOs, chief investment officers of some of the biggest banks in the world, and also biggest fund managers in the world, are friends of mine on Facebook, and we still keep in touch. And it's lovely. And that comes down to the relationships we build, more so than trying to win in terms of sales and everything. And I always had that intention. I must say I was very lucky in terms of when I worked for some of my companies, I had some really good products. So I didn't have to do a hard sell, although I did sometimes, but quite often it was all about relationship building. I mean, you can imagine there was 30,000 different funds out there. So the financial advisors and portfolio managers that I was speaking to could choose from any of them. And we were never, ever the top fund, but we were always, either in second quartile or top quartile in terms of long-term performance. And that gave you a general way in. Then it came down to relationships and building those relationships. So in terms of building any business, it's all down to the relationships that you have. Your network is your net worth. And, I built up a net worth in terms of networks of, my best friends who are wealth managers look after the Sultan of Brunei, look after Roman Abramovich, who owns Chelsea Football Club, look after Richard Branson, and many, many other people of that kind of ilk as well. So it gives a big advantage, obviously, in terms of that. But even if you don't, one of the things I think the mistake people make is they think they're just going to go on social media, do some flash videos or whatever, and they're going to get lots of business in. It doesn't work like that. You need to engage with people on the heart level, and you need to actually speak to them in live, real time. So what I say to people always is, if you have a business, make sure you put together a presentation, one, to sell from the stage, and two, to be paid to be speak as well. And that way you get two opportunities. And also make sure that you have presentations of different times. So obviously an hour, which is the standard, 45 minutes, half an hour, 20 minutes, 15, and even 10. Because there are summits, expos, conferences, and corporate events that bring in speakers and want them speaking for either 10 minutes or even an hour. So if you can be ready and have your artillery in your gun ready to fire if you need to, then you're going to be a much bigger advantage of actually bringing in business.
So you actually teach speaking, don't you? You have a speaking like academy or something, don't you? I believe. So this is something you actually do. One of your offers.
Yeah. So I coached and speak everything from the president of the JCI, which is the Junior Chamber International, which was started up by JFK, John F. Kennedy, back in the 60s. And it's one of the biggest networking groups of business people under the age of 40 in the world. And so the president of Ireland actually came to me and asked me for help in terms of bringing a presentation together. So she'd be one. The CIO, Chief Information Officer of Dell, as in Dell Technologies, one of the biggest technology firms in the world. Yeah. I help him. I help the whole of Dell because I'm one of their chief executive coaches. But it's people like that working, either helping them in terms of speaking on stage, more of an inspirational one, or pitching their business, or people doing presentations in terms of sales, or people doing presentations in terms of to the board and stuff.
This is where you're quite unusual, because most speakers have a sort of niche, just one niche, and they speak on mindset or development or business or investment or something. But you are actually multifaceted as a speaker, because you speak across, which is it is quite unusual, isn't it? So the way that you have this wide breadth of speakings, whatever you call it, niches.
Yeah, a lot of people only have one keynote.
Yeah, exactly.
I have about 10. And
that's what I thought. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, it generally comes from people asking me to speak on different things. And when you have a series of good values and you've done a lot of different courses in terms of learning lots of different things, you have an ability to speak on different topics to add value to people. And at the end of the day, it's about our experiences and our learnings that we can utilize to help other people, to help them go through the same things in an easier fashion is what counts, because everybody wants to try and get to where you are or where the person they want to be is as quickly and as fast as possible, with getting more done in less time with less stress. So I enable them to do that.
So, yeah. And I mean, we hope to help people listening to get towards their dream business so they can lead their dream life. Okay, so that's what we're about on this channel. That's what we hope to help people there. Because my personal experience, having lived on this planet quite a while, is that the best way to live a life where you have freedom and control and have the assets that you want is through your own creation. It is possible to do it. Like, you obviously were very successful. You moved up in a corporation and did very well that way. But then when you were ill, then that got more complicated and you changed your life. So a lot of people at some point go, actually, I'd like to work for myself. But then It's not easier, but it's different. And it gives you a little bit more control over things. I mean, so that's when you became sick. That's when you went off on your own. Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly, or did I get that wrong?
No, I actually, to be honest with Lisa, what I did, and I advise anybody within the corporate world to do this, was initially it was 2012 when I initially had the near-death experience. 2013 when I started learning healing modalities and everything like that. And it was only 2018 where I actually left the corporate world, because I advise people to start a side hustle business and make sure you test it and make sure you know that you've got decent business coming in before you take that step outside of it. So I'd been doing a lot of healing, a lot of coaching, a lot of life coaching, a lot of speaking on stage before I left. In fact, I think I was paid, I think at the start of 2018, before I actually left Davy, I was paid $5,000 to stand on stage for 40 minutes. So, I knew that I was bringing in money already on the outside before I took that step in. And unless you have a good, and also I have to say, I also had quite a lot of money in the bank, so that helped as well. And if I hadn't had that money in the bank, I think it would have been a lot harder, a lot more stressful. And I don't know whether I would have been as successful, because I've had that fear in my head. And also it's the kind of idea of knowing you earned X, Y, Z before in hedge funds. You kind of think, well, maybe it's just easier doing that. And I have to say, sometimes working for a corporate is a lot easier, because if you're an intelligent, hardworking person, which I've always been, you have a sales support person, you have a marketing person, a salesperson, a PR team, a finance team, and everything doing the stuff for you. So the only thing you need to do is turn up at 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, and leave at whatever time at night and do your work. Whereas I think sometimes I work 24/7. But the difference is I'm doing it because I absolutely love doing it. And I think for anybody out there, that's the most important thing. If you want to find out the best possible thing to do in terms of work, is write down 5 things that you absolutely love doing, 5 things you're good at doing, and 5 things you can add value to people. Find a match, and you're going to go out there knowing that you're on the right track in some way or form. Or if you are in that job, and this is one of the things, if I'd known this, actually, Lisa, I may not have left, is if you can look at what you're doing at the moment and analyze how it adds value to that end granny or grandpa, mother, father, brother, sister, son, and daughter in some way or form, then you can wake up with a sense of meaning every day, knowing that you're actually adding value to somebody's life rather than just doing something transactional. And that's the problem, because I used to think I was just doing something transactional, but actually in the investment world, what I was doing is I was enabling that granny or grandpa to retire younger, give more to their children, their grandchildren, or buy a better retirement home. And I didn't see it that way at the time. So whatever job you're in out there listening, think about what you do, even if you're a secretary or janitor, how it adds value in terms of the energetic connection to the end customer, and then feel good about yourself because you're bettering someone's life in some way or form.
Yeah, I mean, because there's multiple ways. I mean, we use the word entrepreneur, but you can be an intrapreneur, and you can also really take on the company you're working with and build it, and then sometimes end up owning it. There's been stories of people doing that where they've done what you've done. They've looked at how much value they can add to the company, and that can lead you to living your dream life as well. So there's many roads to Rome. So you, I mean, are you seriously saying that there really hasn't been any point in your life where you had any self-doubt? I have a feeling there hasn't been. I think you're one of those rare ones.
I can tell you something, Lisa. There's nobody out there that doesn't have times, because we all have a gremlin on one shoulder and an angel on the other shoulder. The angel is always telling you that you're good enough, you can do this, you can achieve it, and everything like that. Whereas the gremlin will say you're not good enough. This isn't you. You should go back and do that, or whatever. And it's up to your conscious decision of which one you choose to listen to. And when we have flowers and weeds going into our head all the time, the aim is to plant more and more flowers so you listen to them rather than those weeds. And that takes a lot of conscious communication with oneself as well, because you're the person who talks to yourself the most. And sometimes it can be, the most intelligent conversation you have. So you might as well make it positive as well. And that means seeding that subconscious every single day.
Like your mother did. I mean, bless her for doing that. How incredible. So what are the tools? So you are a very successful speaker, coach, businessman. So what advice do you give? Obviously, you just said that, but if you could say 3 tools that someone who's out there, maybe they're trying a side hustle, maybe they're trying to be an entrepreneur, or they're looking to quit their job and start their own business, what would be 3 things you would say they must do, that you would say, like, right, this is what you have to do every day, or this is what you need to think about really carefully before you take your next steps?
Number 1 is get your communication up to the highest level in terms of communication skills. All businesses are built basically on selling something to somebody, whether it's a service or a product. And in order to be able to do that, you need to deliver relationships with the clients. And in terms of relationships, I always break the relationship word down to 3 different parts. So there's a ship that goes in a direction, port to port. And you need to make sure yourself and your team and yourself and your clients are on board that ship going in the same direction. How do you do that? Well, the old-fashioned ships had sails. And those sails, the more sails they have, the faster the ship went in the right direction. Now, in terms of sales can also mean, in a different point of view, communication. So in a relationship, including a love relationship, in order to be on board in the right direction, we need to relay the other part of the relationship word. In terms of conscious communication and even hearing the energy behind the words are shuns. And that shuns are, if it's a business, conditions as well, but generally expectations, needs, and values, so that we understand exactly what the client is looking for and be able to relay them in the best possible conscious manner, and actively listening to their needs as well, so we match their needs to our USPs as well. And that way, then you'll be able to get on board going in the right direction of life or in business, in terms of that ship as well. So that's the first thing in terms of communication skills. And I would highly recommend, and I'd help people with this, getting your communication skills into the highest manner, because communication in terms of conscious communication can be the smallest things that can sabotage you. Because, for example, I'll give you an example. So people, when I started getting into the healing stuff, but also I was very good at manifesting for people, and people would come up to me and say, "Oh, Doug, can you pray it doesn't rain on my wedding day?" And I would say no, because you put rain and wedding day in the same sentence, and energetically those 2 words can connect and create rain and on your wedding day. So what I will do is I'll pray that there's blue sky and sunshine on your wedding day, so that you get what you want rather than what you don't want. Because I believe the subconscious brain does not understand the "I hope nots." It just understands the energy behind the words that we say. So it's very important to talk out loud when you speak to other people, your team, your clients, or even your own self, in terms of what you want rather than what you hope doesn't happen. So that's the first thing. Second thing, in terms of being able to attract the best possible people into your life, you need to have a look at yourself in terms of emotional intelligence, in terms of awareness, in terms of understanding what are your triggers, your traumas, your parental programs. Because if you have stuck emotions within, you're going to end up attracting similar type of people. Like attracts like. So you need to get yourself up into the highest frequency vibration. As they say, your vibe attracts your tribe. So if you want to attract multi-millionaires who are going to pay you multi-million pounds for your products, then you need to get yourself into the highest level. So there are coaches out there that charge 150, 200 quid for their product, their hour with you or whatever. And there are coaches like Tony Robbins who will charge £1 million for a year for once a month coaching. I'm somewhere in the middle, shall we say. But
even the price, guys, get him before he's Tony Robbins' price.
but the point being is, it is, you need to get yourself into that highest level. You need to know you've got results, and that as starting a business as well. In terms of that, get yourself into the highest frequency level, so you bring in the best possible clients, best possible people, and you're in the highest vibrant state. And that way you'll be able to do more, get more done, and energetically you'll be able to give out more as well. But also, by getting out and seeing a few clients when you first start off and proving your worth at either a lower cost or even free, and then ask for testimonies and use LinkedIn as the testimonies to utilize. Because let's face it, you can get a testimony from someone, you can get them to write it out, you write it out, you put it on your website. But somebody who doesn't know you could just think, did he write that himself? Or is it actually a real one? Whereas on LinkedIn, they can link it into a real person. They can contact that real person. They can have a look at that real person and even ask that real person, did Doug do what he said he did for you? And of course, you wouldn't put that up there for your own reputation unless he did. So that's why, making sure, 1, communication, 2, develop those relationships. Sorry, those are interlinked. 2, getting yourself into the best energetic state. And then remember, the third bit is, I always say I have an acronym called MAKE in terms of making it happen in business. And that is down to mindset. M is mindset in terms of getting yourself into the best possible mindset. And we talked a little bit about that already. Also putting action plans in place. And that includes a business plan in terms of understanding where you are, where you're looking to go to, but also putting targets in place, not just for the year, but also the quarter, the month, and even the week. And then put daily processes and procedures in place that lead you towards those targets. Secondly, in terms of action planning, it's about client mapping. Who's your avatar? Because so many people spend so much time wasted and not really pinning into those best clients. And then activity planning as well, in terms of action planning, comes down to simple things like making sure you pick up the phone. If you get somebody who likes a post, don't just go, oh, thanks for the like. Maybe follow up and actually speak to them, because you'll create an energetic connection with them. As I said earlier on, get on stages, go to expos, meet people, shake their hands, create energy bonds with them, and you'll find you'll be much more successful in terms of actions. K is knowledge, and knowledge in terms of business is, well, one, know your client, know your product, know your industry, and match your client needs to your USPs, but also awareness, and awareness of what's the market doing, situational awareness, what's happening in terms of the economy at the moment. We all know, obviously, inflation is high, interest rates are going up and everything like that. Can we take advantage of that in some way or form? Team awareness, if you have a team, understanding that everybody have different dynamics, different ways of seeing things and different perspectives. So understand and ask questions rather than making assumptions, so that you speak to the other people's languages rather than just your own in their terms of communication channels. Then also, in terms of if you have a bigger organization, organizational awareness is understand that everybody in terms of different departments have different agendas. So make sure you collaborate rather than compete. Whereas there's collaboration, create new things from nothing. Where there's competition, there's a sense of lack going for the same thing. And then obviously client awareness. And we mentioned that in terms of understanding what does the client need and really working to a long-term relationship rather than quick win sales. So that helps in the knowledge. And then finally, E is energy. And that energy comes down to a sense of purpose and a why and a love for what you do, a love for the people you work with, and a love for the clients you serve. And I actually also say in an acronym that love is an acronym for lots of vibrant energy. So if you optimize your energy, you can optimize your performance in everything you do.
Yeah, you do sound very like Tony Robbins when you're saying that, because he's the energy king. I've done a lot of Tony Robbins work. Funnily enough, I had a dream about Tony Robbins last night. I dreamt that I got picked out of it and then taken up and had to do all this weird stuff. It was very, very strange. It's making me laugh every time I think about Tony Robbins. I love that. Make so simple and easy to understand. You make it seem straightforward, and of course business is actually based on a few principles when done well, like you've said. So what do you think is the best way forward? So basically, do you feel people should have a coach? I mean, is that the way? What's the best way for people to get started if they're desperate to just get started somewhere? What would you say? Go hire a coach, go do a lot of reading, what would your suggestion be?
Well, a bit of everything. So even, I coach, as you know, you can look at my LinkedIn recommendations, you can see it. I coach top C-level execs, CEOs of some of the biggest firms in the world, CIOs of the biggest technology firm in the world, which I mentioned earlier on, and many others like that as well. But I still have a coach. I have a spiritual coach. I actually have a parenting coach because I've got teenagers. And I want to make sure that I know he's a psychologist, and he's one of the best psychologists in that area, in that field. And also because you can learn so much from these other people. And let's face it, Tiger Woods is the best, or one of the best golfers in the world, as is Rory McIlroy as well. They both had coaches, and the coaches know better necessarily from them, but the coach helps them mastermind to another level, and the coach helps them see things in them that they don't see themselves sometimes, even the most minute thing. And if you think about it, a professional golfer in your local top, let's say Wentworth, which is a fantastic golf course over in England, the professional golfer there is brilliant. But the difference between him and Tiger Woods to the naked eye might seem very little, but the difference is actually massive. And that comes down to having a coach to take you to that higher level. So yeah, listen to the podcast like you're probably listening to now, go to the seminars, go to the conferences. But you cannot beat one-to-one coaching, or at least going into a program where there's maybe 12 or 15 of you or something like that, and you've got access to the coach to ask questions to understand, so that you can get up to the level as quickly as possible. Master, model the masters, I think Tony Robbins always says. And
Yes.
I would agree with that as well.
He does. So what's left for you? Now, you're very, very successful right now, but I know that you probably have some dreams and some mission that you're on still. You're still a young man. There's a lot of time ahead. So tell me what's Doug Gordon's mission, and what are some of your dreams?
Well, as I said, Lisa, my new book has just come out. And, oh, sorry, it's not out. It's coming out on the 22nd of February.
2 days, yeah.
And, so the book is testimonied by, I'm sure people have listened or seen the Secret film and book, which sold over 30 million copies. So it's testimonied by Lisa Nichols and Dr. Jean DiMartini. It's also testimonies by Stephen Covey, that's Stephen M.R. Covey, who wrote Speed of Trust. He's a New York Times bestseller. It's also testimony